Hey, what's up, guys? Chris Fluke here. Chris Fluke Podcast, episode 22. Today, we got a special guest, Jason Brader. Thank you for coming on, man. We were trying to put this together, I think, a couple months ago, maybe. Yeah. We're going to get into what happened and kind of moving around, and we couldn't sync up. But just a quick introduction to Jay. I think when I first started training people, I kind of, talked about on other episodes, working at an LA Fitness, stuff like that. Was coaching some football, probably coaching wrestling at the time, and I don't know where the connection came. I think maybe you were tied in at Salkin with football. Yep. You came down. I think you might have talked to the head coach at the time, Avancho, and I think you might have just been like, "Hey, come by the gym one night or whatever." Yeah, so I just went over there, and it was kind of like basically like an introduction to kind of the sports-specific training, some of the stuff that you were doing. But anyway, Jay let me come by, let me hang out whenever I wanted to. We did some speed camps, I remember, going to Northampton, maybe something at Emmaus. We did stuff at Salkin.
Camps too.
Youth stuff, yeah. But anyway, it was super cool that, he had an established business and allowed me to kind of get in there and I guess get my feet wet, so to speak, and try to learn a little bit about it. And so I appreciate that. Thanks for that. But,
of course.
That was whatever. It's been like 8 years ago.
Yeah.
And from there, man, so you were down here in Quakertown, which is right down the road. Made the move.
Yep.
All right. You live down the road.
Yeah, yep.
So then you took your business down over to Easton.
Yeah.
Right? How long were you there? I never stopped.
I was there probably about 4 years, so almost 4 going on my fit. Well, no, it was actually almost 5 years. 5. So, yep.
And then, just real quick basic background on you, man. Growing up, you're here in the Lehigh Valley, right?
Bethlehem, yep. So I went to Liberty High School, graduated from there in 94, man. So
back in the day.
You get older. Yeah, getting old. Played football, became an All-American at Muhlenberg College, and from there, was always into training, getting bigger, stronger, faster, and that stuff. And I wanted to do something after I had gotten done with school that would help athletes do the things that I was able to do through sports, and that's working out and then using the workouts, like the training for speed and strength, combining that and making something practical for them that they could apply to their sports.
From 1994 is when you graduated, so like 92, 93, whatever, you're in high school, right?
Yeah, yep.
Training opportunities or like training methods at that time, what was going on? Bodybuilding type stuff? Or
just go into the gym and the coach is like, "Look, man, you need to lift weights." And we walked in, and there were weights around the room, and we just went in, picked them up, put the weights down, and then that's it, man. So back then, it was like people knew that lifting helped you, right? So they're like, okay, it's important to lift. The coaches, though, had zero clue, right? And they looked at it basically more for team building, camaraderie.
Which it does.
So, but at the same time, it also becomes a hangout, right? Because I can think of 1,000 things that build teamwork that are the wrong things, right? So, and then
it's a hangout for the coaches too. They're hanging in the corner. These kids are supposed to be,
Right. Yeah. So back then, man, it was like rudimentary. There wasn't a lot of really structured time, but it was still good.
So you were doing really well though as a football player, and then. After high school, it took you to college. Those training, was it starting to get better then?
Well, yeah. So you had your basic plan, and then when I went to Lackawanna first, so I played up there for 2 years. My good friend now, his name is Coach Charlie Grandy. Coach Grandy was our strength coach.
Yeah,
and. He was really the first guy that had a structured plan. So he did all our speed training. And like what speed training was back then isn't what speed training is now. And he basically was one of the first guys that I worked with that was doing like the footwork drills. He was doing the ladder work and just basic cone drills. And to look back at it, a lot of the stuff we don't really coin as speed training now. That's like basically a warm up, or that's something to get you going, working on foot speed and that stuff, timing. But back then, that was kind of like what people were beginning to do with the team. But it was much more intense. It was organized, well thought out and planned. So that was really the first time that I really was exposed to that. And then weight training was weight training, so we had plans.
Yeah.
We were trying to beat the guy your left and right. So I mean, it was a competitive group, and we had guys that were big, strong, and fast. So you needed it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think that's when I really saw like how important it was to play college sports. Like you needed to lift weights, you needed to be bigger, you needed to be stronger, you had to be fast.
If not, you're going to get weeded out.
Yeah,
pretty much, pretty
real
quick.
Yeah, yep.
After that, I mean, so you got Muhlenberg. Some tryouts, right? Dabbled a little bit.
Oh yeah, yep. So I had a shot to do all that stuff. Yeah. So I mean, the one thing that I really don't like to stress is like what I didn't do. Right. So it's like I was able to set myself up to get to that point. So I had a bunch of teams that came in. They did their timing and that stuff. We had the scouts from national and that stuff where they came in my junior year, ran well. Became an All-American, and then from there, I had played my senior year then and did really well, and then I got an agent and that stuff, so I had a bunch of workouts, and I was right there at the cusp. And then when you look at it, coming from a small school, like everything is an uphill fight.
Yeah.
So I was just happy to kind of be in that boat, thinking about having teams stopping by the college, seeing the scouts there and that stuff. And from coming from my background, from having my mom and dad dying when I was in high school and that stuff, and having my father, he was a dropout in 8th grade and that stuff, a guy that, didn't have a formal schooling background to come as far as I did from all those tough times to getting that chance to me was like, holy smokes. And then you kind of see like what you can do with your life coming from a tougher past. Yeah. So I think that's what I kind of take from that. But a lot of times, like if I'm talking to athletes or I talk to coaches and that stuff, they're like, man, like, that's really cool. But then it's like, from being around guys that actually made it, it's almost like the same thing as talking about a job that you almost got, right? You almost, got picked for. It's like, that's cool. I had a chance, but guys that are, competitive want to get those jobs.
Yeah.
So,
after that, what do we got? So anyway, you had this stuff, man. So at that moment in time in your life, how old are you? Like early 20s, right?
Yeah, I was like 22, 3.
How I know you wanted that job, right? The NFL job.
Yeah.
When that opportunity was no longer there, how'd that affect your mindset? Was it crushing, or was it kind of ready to move on?
You know what, man? I was crushed that I couldn't play ball till I was probably 32 or 3.
Really? So you were you coaching that football?
Oh, well, yeah, I was doing the training full time at that point, but I loved everything about it. The teamwork, the struggle, right? Just the ups and downs, the highs and lows, having structured training, being around guys that had the same goals. And I think that if you haven't played sports, you really don't realize like what it's about. And I missed that. You can go to college, you can work at a job that you really enjoy, but you never get that camaraderie like you do when you're playing sports. So I think that's why I got into training. And after I got done with all my sports stuff, I got a job and taught. So I taught psychology and sports psych for 8 years, and I was coaching and that stuff at Peaburg High School, and it was just awesome. So I worked with a bunch of great kids. Some of those guys were Justin Gaiman, that was world class in track and field. Yep. And then I worked with Dan Persa, that went off to play at Northwestern and did great there. And so right there, it's like I was beginning to build my name and build my brand, and that's when I started FAST. Okay, and then FAST, a lot of folks think like fast performance, they think maybe speed training, but it really stands for functional athletic speed and strength training, because I wanted something that was functional for the overall athlete. There were a lot of gyms at that time where they basically had strength gyms, and then there were guys that were doing speed camps. Right, and then it's like, okay, like we could go to a school, train their team outside, and then that was the speed camp. But I wanted to do more. I wanted to bridge that gap and have everything in one place. So I really was, I think, the first guy to have like the training indoors where you could do some speed agility, and then into that strength stuff. So that's where I started fast, and then from there was maybe 2 or 3 gyms in the game that was kind of like, so I was basically like chopping down trees, and then when I started to chop, there were a lot of people that were trying to follow that path.
Yeah.
But there's only one me though. So
you're one of the early ones.
Adapters.
Well, even some of that stuff too is like. The speed and agility stuff is cool and all that, but if the kid's weak, he's probably not going to be moving too fast anyway. So there needs to be some sort of blending of of the stuff. So anyway, man. So I think we got the basics there. We're in Easton. You recently had some life changes, multiple, right? So,
So a lot. But of things.
How long? So we were talking. Until you were 32, you missed football. Say. To now you're starting to get into strength and conditioning coaching, right? You're working at different universities the past couple of years. Is that you're getting that camaraderie back? Is that a different feel than what you had at your gym?
Oh yeah. See, when I started, athletes were just loyal, and they loved me as their coach.
Yeah,
they bought in, and the day and age has changed, and I think it's not so much the kids. I think it's the parents. It's the adults. A lot of folks, they're very anxious. They're anxious, and they want a quick fix. They want things to happen right now. And when I was training guys, it was like a process. We had a long-term plan. And athletes like Dan Persa, Dan was training with me when he started ninth grade, all the way through school.
Yes.
Went to the Big Ten, did great there, but like he would always come back and then train if he had a week off. If he had like 2 weeks off, he'd come right back and train. He would text me and say, "Hey Jay, do you have stuff for me?" Because he was always trying to get that edge, and that was like the mindset that I projected and taught. And we had those types of kids, but as the years went on, those kids, they started to die.
So what's going on?
So I just think it was basically attitudes of parents, because the parents, they're a little bit more savvy, they're researching things, and they look at what's cool, right? They're like, oh man, like they look at what's new and fresh, okay? Compared to experience, record, right? Where I'm like a guy, it's experience, records that count. Like what has Chris Fluck done? Who's Chris Fluck helped? Right, and then what are you about? How can you safely work with my son, right, with my girls, and what can you do? And a lot of parents never ask that. They're just like, they're taking pictures of their kids, they're trying to walk into the gym and film their kid doing a squat, and they make it seem like that's exceptional, but that's the standard. And I think now a lot of folks, they embrace mediocrity, and they're like, okay, like being average is the new standard, right? And with me, it was never that deal. Like I wanted the best. I wanted guys that gave me their best so I could give them my best. And then at the end, we could look back and say, man, all this hard work paid off. And I think that had really changed, because people, they're jumping from gym to gym. Coaches don't care, right? Where I'm like a loyalist, man. If I'm with you, I want to do what's right for Chris Fluck.
Yeah.
And if you're training at 4 gyms, that's telling me that you're not bought in. You're not sold. You
as an athlete going to 4 different people?
Yeah, because you can't be consistent. Well, no, with me at the start, no. But as I got older, I would see guys move on. And it's like almost like, okay, well, you're training here, you're training there. That tells me you're an anxious guy. And you don't trust yourself, because maybe you're not doing what you need to do, right? And then you know that, so you're trying to find the magic pill. And the magic pill you'll never find, because there's none, okay? So you need to be all in. And then to be honest, like almost anything works. Any training plan will work if you go hard, right? It might not work as well as some, okay? Like the coach might not be as good. But if you go all in, something will happen, and a lot of times it will be pretty good. So I think that's what changed, and I needed to change. Like, I needed to get back to my roots. I needed to get back and coach and not have to worry about anything dealing with marketing, with advertising, with trying to recruit people by taking pictures and like taking a recording of somebody doing a box jump. And it's like, look, man, like, you should be doing this, right? That's not, that's not awesome. It's like, okay, like, you box jumped. You stink, though. You're lazy. Right? But then I'm showcasing this to everyone, and parents are like, oh, look at this, and look at all the likes. And then soon you get trapped into that boat.
Yeah, I have a hard time with that stuff.
So.
You got a 12-year-old doing something. It's like, do I really want to record a 12-year-old and put them online? But that's kind of what's going on. Like, and
so you can't fault guys too, because look, man, if you're doing anything, right? If you're building a bridge, right? You're going to showcase that bridge and say, hey, look how nice this looks, right? If you're doing lawn care, right? You're showing like the work you do, right? Mm-hmm. Hey, man, it looks great. So you're going to record things. You're going to do all that stuff. So we did the same thing. So it's not like it's a bad thing. It's just like there's a lot more and more of that now, and that's life. So you need to adjust and adapt. I did, but again, like there's certain things about me that I won't change. I think standards are that, right? Yeah. So I mean, you're either standards are high, or you're gonna say, okay, I'm gonna drop mine or adjust mine to meet someone else's, right? Where my goal has always been to raise mine so I can bring others up. So and I think that's what college does. Like a college coach or a coach that has a team, because you can control that. So,
the kid, like you were talking about, Dan Persa, pretty intrinsically motivated to do things, and was like contacting you whenever he could to get a workout in. Those kids that aren't doing that, do you think you could do you think you could pull that out of kids? Like, how successful have you been to get that kid that's not motivated?
Oh man, like I think that's my strength. That's my strength, man.
And do you think now compared to 10 years ago, it's just getting a little bit harder, or just less likely?
No, the kids are the same. People are the same. People want discipline. They want structure. They want to know what they need to do.
Yeah.
Right. And what happens is, from a cultural standpoint, sometimes people look at how someone views them, and that becomes what's important.
Yeah.
So if I'm tough on Chris Fluck, maybe Chris won't like me. Maybe Chris won't call me at night, right? But if my job's to coach you, what I accept is what I coach, right? So if I accept you walking in late, if I accept you wearing the wrong gear, if I accept you talking back to me, if I accept you doing things wrong, okay, I coach that. So then the next time you're in, it's harder to say, no, that's not the right way. So you need to be really strong in what you expect, right? So I think that when you set the bar high, when people know what to expect, they feel safe. They're going to respect you. And I don't need to relate to a kid, okay? They have tons of friends.
Yeah.
They need to respect me, and people respect you when you help them. And I've never had one kid ever come back to me and say, Coach, you were too hard, and now I'm a doctor, and I just regret how hard you pushed me.
Yeah.
Never, right? I have them come back and say, thanks, Jay, or thanks, Coach, right? Like the things that you taught me beyond just weights and speed stuff, like has really helped me in everything, being on time, being prepped, and then having that why, like teaching, like, guys to think about, like, why are you here, right? And some guys say, well, because my mom and dad said I need to come.
Yeah.
Well, that's not going to help you build that drive, okay? And when the kids know why they're there, the how and the what becomes easy because they go hard, right? So if Chris Fluck knows why he's building this gym, if Chris Fluck knows why he's going to push himself hard, okay, what you do then is easier, right? How you go about that is easier because your why is so high that you'll do whatever it takes. And I think that's something that when coaches instill that, when parents instill that, people can become killers, man. And not in a bad way, but they kill whatever they do in the gym or in life.
Yeah.
So
So I had that. I mean, that kind of mindset, the why you're doing what you're doing. How did now we're talking in a transition to almost same type of stuff, but it is kind of a different career, a little bit of a pivot in the sense you're working at a university.
Yeah.
Let's just introduce that. I mean, you're at Alabama, right?
Yep.
So you're operating your gym,
yeah,
full time, right?
Brutal.
How did the Alabama opportunity come about?
Well, oh boy. So I was going to go to the U. Okay, so I thought that was all sealed and dealed and that stuff, but that fell through. And at that point, I was
Do you know somebody down there?
Time. Yeah,
had that contact.
So yep. So my friend was an assistant strength coach there, and the guy's an awesome coach and that stuff. And he was like, "Look, Jay, if you have the time, okay, would you want to come down here and learn and coach?" I was like, "Yeah, of course." So I planned to go there from like June until camp, and that fell through. So I'm not a guy to quit. And I never told my wife this, but I was online and I went to almost every single big-time school. And I looked up the head strength coach's name and that stuff. I tried to find their contact, and I sent them all emails, right? So I was on the Bama site, and they don't have their strength staff's emails and that stuff, because everyone and their mom would be trying to contact them. So I kind of looked at the extensions, and I'm like, well, the pattern is this, so maybe if I just install said name, that's the right one. So I sent one to Scott Cochran, and thinking that this guy will probably never get back to me. And a couple months went by, and then guess who gets back to me and says, "Hey, would you like to come down and help us?" And I was like, holy crap. I mean, they're just coming off the championship year, and I'm thinking, man, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm like, just thinking about being there in this great gym and being around Coach Saban and just all these awesome guys was like a no-brainer. So my wife's like, "Jay, you have to go." So at that point, then I'm planning, like, how can I have my gym go full steam ahead without me being there? And this is your baby. This is your life. This is what you do. And I started my gym in my basement.
Yeah.
And it's like things take a long time to build, but they can fall real quick. So I had my plan, and I'm like, man, I'm just going to do it. Right. So I went down there. I found a place to stay. Went down there with the mindset that I'm starting from ground zero. Right. And then, like, from doing that, I just have this mindset, start every day from zero. So I just went down there as a sponge, and I looked at how they operated the place, and not so much from a training standpoint, because a lot of guys ask me, like, how do they train? How do they do it? And their training is fourth quarter, man. Just go all in, and it's intense and it's extreme. But the process, how they teach it, how they train the guys, the mindset, that's what I wanted to learn. And so I went there, I met some great staff, met some great friends and that stuff. And my good friend, Sam Petito, who was in charge of all the recruiting, was like, "Look, Jay, you've invented timers and that stuff. Would you be able to help us assess the four and five-star guys at the camp?" So I'm like, "Yeah, of course." So I did all the timing.
Yep.
And we started talking about training and that stuff, and he turned me on to Kurt. Okay, so Kurt Hester is like the man. Like, he's like revered as being one of the top in the world, like the top strength guys. And so I ended up contacting Kurt, and it took a few weeks to get through. He gets back to me. He's like, "Hey, Jay, I'd like to meet you." So we're going back and forth, and then the job, opens up there. So I'm like,
"That's Louisiana Tech.
I'll just apply for it."
Yeah.
It's sorry about that. At Tech. And so Bama asked me to stay then, okay, for the whole season. So I plan to come back home. So I'm thinking, I'm doing my gym up here. I'm doing all this stuff. And I'm like, man, like, it's just very intense. Plus being away from my wife and kids, which was brutal. I mean, that was the hardest part, like not being home and that stuff. But just doing all the marketing for my gym and doing all the stuff for Instagram, and that was really tough. Balancing my job as a coach and then also my gym. So we get done with the bowl, And Kurt calls me, and he's like, well, I've got a job here. And we're going back and forth. I'm talking to my wife, and I'm thinking, man, I've been at Bama. My plan was to stay the full year. And it just happened that he got that spot open, and he's like, come on down. So I went from Bama.
Yep.
I drove down to Tech. And,
so, but I mean, that whole quest, I feel like, for college coaching, whether you're coaching a sport, say football, you could have a lot of coaches, and the strength stuff, I mean, there's almost like a hierarchy of, so you have to put, like right now.
Put in the time, right? And then
so you got to start low and
I
start
started from scratch, and that's the thing, man. That's why I say start at ground zero.
And somebody that's been in the game for what, 41,
to be 42 at that time.
Yeah.
Oldest guy there, Cochran, is younger than me.
3 kids home.
He's 40, right? I'm 43 now, and I got 3 kids. I got a gym.
Yeah.
Most folks don't take risk. They're averse to that, right? And then when you get to my point, it's a comfortable lifestyle. I go home, I go to my gym, it operates itself, and I'm on cruise. And just complacency is the killer to success, right? And it just, I was at that point that I needed something new. I needed that fresh air, that brand new breath. And when I got there, I just enjoyed everything. Cleaning up.
Alabama, we're talking right now.
Yeah, like guys were, they bitch, this sucks. And I was up early, dude, 4 o'clock. I'd be the first guy in. And I made a bet to myself. I was like, I'm going to be the first dude in every single day. Every day. And I was never taught, hey, man, be the last guy in, be the first guy out. You know, I was taught, be the first guy in and just give everything you got, man. And every day I gave everything I had at the time. And I learned about training. I learned about the way things work there. And it was just awesome. And like every day walking into that place, you're like the greatest athletes in the world, in the history of sports at times. We're in that same gym, and I'm there. And it didn't matter if I was the top guy or the lowest guy. I embraced that, man. And my first day there, right, I'm walking around Bryant, right, the other field. So I'm outside there with my wife and my son, JJ, right? And guess who is going into his black truck? He's got like a little group of people helping him. And I'm like, yo, man. And JJ and I just watched A Football Life about this guy.
I don't know, man.
Broadway Joe.
Oh.
Joe Namath. And my son said,
I never would have guessed that.
He's like, Dad, Joe Namath, Joe. I was like, well, come on, man. I was like, yeah. So I yelled to him. And I've never been like starstruck.
Yeah.
But I was like, yo, man. And then he came up. I was like, what's up, man? And we talked for like a half an hour. One of the chillest dudes you would ever meet. One of the greatest dudes, man. Just
like a king down
awesome.
there.
And he's talking to us about Pennsylvania because he's from here. So he's from out west. And we knew some of the same guys. We're talking about being back home. And like he showed us his rings. And he's like, he posed with me and my wife and my son. And just like an awesome dude. So that was like my first taste.
Yeah.
And like I wanted more, man. And just being around the guys and just seeing the caliber of athlete there and how much work is put in. And a lot of folks think it comes easy. And these guys just have talent. Nah, man, like they bring it every single day. And every day is 4th and goal, 4th and 1. Everything you do, 4th and 1. Right? So the mindset is just ingrained.
I mean, those guys, if they don't have that mindset, just the way that university is able to recruit, that guy's going to be on the bench.
Play.
So But then when you compare that university, not to Louisiana Tech, but like just in general, you haven't been, say, in every weight room, but you've been in a decent, right?
Yeah.
So what do you think separates Alabama then?
It's just that the culture. I mean, that's the main thing. So I mean, you can look at weights and weight racks and like that stuff. I mean, it doesn't matter like what you have because everybody does squats, everybody does bench press, everybody does the same thing. Okay, and the one thing too, everyone works hard. Everyone works hard. Every college works hard. So, back in the day, like, we outwork guys. You're expected to work hard. Mm-hmm. So, like, no one's saying to you, like, hey, Chris, man, you worked hard today. Great job. It's like, no, it's not a great job. That's
where you're supposed to be.
Yeah. So you're not told, like, hey, man, you really coached today. It's like, well, you're expected to be great. So that's the one thing I think that you learn really quick. And I think when you're around, like, a lot of average folks, it's easy to kind of, your standards dip.
Yeah.
And when you're around, like, elite, you better rise up, man, because you'll be bounced real quick. And then there, too, I think you kind of appreciate the process because you get humbled really quick. Where I went from owner to being the man to going down there and no one cared.
Yep.
No one was like, oh, Jason, you invented this, or you built software, or you have this great gym, or you worked with the first rounder. They're like, who cares? It's what you're doing now.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing right now? And then what you did yesterday doesn't count, right? What you're thinking about doing tomorrow doesn't count. So I really think that, like, just being in the now, being where your feet are, right? That's the most important thing. So then I call it, DTT, like dominate the task. Okay, like whatever you do, you got to be locked in on it.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of folks who look back, like, and then I've done this a lot of nights. I look back and say, man, I wish I would have done that. I wish I would have tried that. I wish I would have been this guy. I wish if I was doing what this guy does now, or like this guy's the same age. So when you look at that, the regret sticks, right? And you allow things that have beaten you up for years to continue to beat you up, okay? And then when you look ahead then, you get anxiety because you're thinking, what happens if I don't? And there were a lot of nights where I'm in bed, I'm thinking, man, will this pay off? Will I be able to reach my goals? Did I make the biggest error of my entire life? Right? This is a lot of work, and you're not seeing the payback, right? Because you're not making big bucks. You're not the lead guy, okay?
Yeah.
And then when you look at it at Bama, like all those guys are 4 or 5-star guys. And it's a humbling time for them too.
Yeah.
Because there's guys like Q, okay? Q is the 3rd pick by the Jets, right? 3rd pick. Stud. He didn't start the year before that. And he could have easily been like, it's not the right spot for me. I could go elsewhere and then I'll be a starter.
Yeah.
But he trusted the process. He trusted his skills, knowing that if he presses a course, good things will happen. And then I think this is the key, okay? When I left, I kept a daily log. So I have like 300 plus pages of just like written notes. And I tracked everything. And it's amazing. Like I had my thoughts, on certain days and that stuff. And I look back, August 1st of last year, okay, I was flying back. And I just recall, like, being with my family and, there's tears and that stuff. And I mean, at that time, I had a chance to go to Temple. And I'm like, I could do that. It would be an easy choice.
Yeah.
It would be the comfortable choice, but then it would be a build-up for an excuse because I could say, things didn't work out. I decided to come, I quit driving back and forth, and I was like, nah, man, I've come this far, and it didn't matter if I was 42, 43, 23 or 4. I was in, right? And I just look back at like a guy like Q, right? If he would have left early or like left to school and didn't stay the course, would he have been the 3rd pick? So you got to be where you're at. Like you need to be here. Like right now, we need to be doing this talk.
Yeah.
Right? Because this is where we need to be. Because this is going to impact. Maybe not tomorrow. Maybe not next month. Maybe not next year. But maybe in 3 years, we're doing something. And I look back and say, you know what? Fluck's a great guy. I know that he works hard. I know that Fluck gave me a chance. And just like how I gave you a chance to stop by and learn and coach, right now we have this bond, and you're able to say, hey, Jay, you know what? Stop on down. Right? What the heck? And I would have never planned that, right? And then at that time, too, I'm not trying to get, gain off of you, and you're not trying to, like, use me at the time. But I respected you, and I respect this whole deal here because you were once like me, a hungry young guy who wanted it, right? And I remember the talks. I was like, hey, maybe you could do this. Maybe you can try that. And then you're like, no, what, man, I could tell that you wanted to be your own man, right? And then you could have easily accepted just, going to a gym and being a trainer and that stuff. But you knew that you had some talents, and you knew what you had in here, and down here, right? It was like, no, I'm going out and doing it. So you can never fault guys for it. And then at that time, too, I was kind of like, man, I could have used you to help me more with camps and stuff. But then, from my selfishness, I was like, oh, man, you kind of get bummed out as a coach and as a friend. But at the same time, like, you look back and think and say, hey, man, this guy's doing the right thing, and it's cool. So.
Now, you talked about kind of being well, first off, too, actually, going off what you said with that mindset, just focusing on the task. Did you always have that, or is this something that you're just starting to develop, these past couple of years? Or, like, when you were 32 and 22, like, what do you think your mindset was like that, or is this something you needed to kind of develop
you're
with
always,
experience and all that,
know what, we're evolving.
Yeah.
Okay, if you're not evolving, you're moving backwards, okay? And I've always thought that. It's like guys say, oh, well, like a leopard has its spots, or a tiger, or whatever the saying is. But like at that point, it's like it kind of assumes that folks can't change, or like this guy's he's set in his ways. I mean, there's certain things that you need to be set with. Like, you need to know like what your start is, or like what your stop is, right? So it's like you need to know you, but at the same time, you learn and you see what works and what crushes you. And I was doing a lot of things that were like just bad, habit-wise. Just, if you sleep in one day, or if you're eating crappy food, if you're, like your mind isn't locked in.
Yeah.
Right. I was like distracted by things that it was like, well, why? Like, who cares? Right. And I think that I've always been a guy that stressed discipline, structure, work ethic, and I was always a guy that worked hard. Like, I came from the bottom, so I knew that like whatever I did, like, I'm going all in, and I just had the mindset that I play to win. Like, I wouldn't leave my family if I didn't go there to play to win, right? And then I've won and I've climbed, but I just think that you basically learn, evolve, and a lot of times guys will talk about this word, and I think this is one of the most important words that folks use, but I think it's misrepresented, okay? Motivation, right? People will give you the talk, right? Like right now, we're inspiring folks, right? They're like, oh, you need to go hard, and you need to know what's your, what's your drive? Where's that come from?
Yeah.
But motivation comes and goes, right? How often have you gotten up and said, man, I'm a little bit tired, right? You're like, and then you wish you didn't have to go in, right? But what drives you then? Discipline.
Yeah.
And the hardest discipline to learn is self-discipline, man. And like now, I've lost 50 pounds in 8 months, right? And I log everything I eat every day. I wake up and I work out every single day like a robot, right? I wake up and go. Like, there's no thought involved.
Yeah.
Okay? And you train yourself. And the guys ask me, they're like, well, how did you like lose weight? I was like, I lost weight. No, I didn't eat as much, right? And then they go, well, how do you get stronger? Lift weights.
Yeah.
Right? How do you get less tired? Go to bed. Right? So, I mean, it's simple. Like, it's not as hard as folks think. And doing things in life, like a lot of folks make things harder. But I'm just like, okay, it's important to me. So I know why. And now I've developed like what I do and how I approach every day. And I think that basically like the discipline, the habits that you build that are positive ones at work, you hang on to that, right? And then like you feel good. Like I feel great now. Like I feel like, now I'm in the best shape of my entire life.
Yeah.
I'm 43. Like, you know, you see guys that go, break it down. I played sports. I was like, man, if you're that broke down, dude, you sucked. Right? I mean, you must have got your ass kicked. Right? And then how could you just develop yourself where it's like you're getting worse in time, right? I like to think that I'm like a fine wine, right? And I'm like the same dude, though, right? I go into the gym, and my athletes, they're like, oh, coach, and I'm like that guy, right? And I was that guy when I was your age. I was that guy when I was 16. I was that guy last month, and I'm that guy now, right? So I think that there's certain things that I love about me, and there's things that I hated, and I was like, know what? I'm sick of it, right? I'm sick of being like a fat guy, right? I'm sick of like talking all this trash. Like, well, you need to do this, and then I'm like, dude, I look bad. Right, and now I look back and I'm like, man, like that was me.
Yeah.
And most folks wouldn't say to my face, or like back then too, like, oh, you look like you're not, you know, that good the shape, because I kind of still looked the part. Like, no, you're in a gym, you have a strength coach, a guy looks big.
Yeah.
Right, but that wasn't like the way I wanted to be, and then I could tell I didn't have the stamina. I didn't have the drive, and it affected everything. And the most important thing that it affected when I was like bigger was here. Like, it was hard to look in the mirror, and then I look back and I thought, man, you know, I used to be this, and then it would beat me up, and then I was like, you know, I got a lot of weight to lose, but you'll never start if you don't take the first step. So my advice, if you want it, get it. I wanted to be a college coach.
Yeah.
Let's go. Right? And it's going to suck. And when you embrace that, you're like, I know this is going to suck. Right? Being away sucks. Not making the cash that you're used to sucks. Going backwards sucks. But I wasn't, though. I was moving forward. And when I could compare where I was on August 1st, when I was going to, you know, report back to Bama, right? And then I was, you know, this year I was going to be flying back to Tech to start camp as an assistant, right? I got a full-time job as a head guy.
How'd that work out now? So we're getting a little bit late in the game, right? Because the season's around the corner.
Yeah.
You know, you were pretty much set to go to Louisiana Tech.
Yeah, so
camp is
there.
Monday, right? Or what?
And,
are they practicing?
The first, right?
Yeah.
So
right.
I was like, man, like Texas. My mind is on just what we need to do to prepare for Texas, week 1, right? And I have my crew, and I work with some great guys, man, great dudes, right? And I was so bummed. And my family was down there.
What was there? I mean,
they
what was the
started
plan?
in like June, and I said, "Well, here."
When you got that job, we're like, "Okay, we're going to be here."
Well, here, look, my family's here because my wife has great health care. She's a good job. So the plan was, I'm there. I'd come home. I'd fly back. They'd fly down, drive down. So once school wrapped up, my wife drives down with the other kids. 18-and-a-half-hour brutal drive. Okay, and I live in like a place called Tech Town. And I purposely, right, I live with my boy, Rance, right, great young coach, right? So we live in this place, no cable, no web. And it's like a brutal, old school army, like barracks. Brutal, dude. Hot as hell there, right? We have an AC, like the wall mount, right? And it doesn't work for like shit, right? So you're sweating bullets, right? And the bugs there are gigantic, like bugs you don't see here. Like there's times I walked out in the room, I'm like, yo, man, I thought I was back in time. Like the bugs that are like the size of a hand. And I'm like, step on it, and I'm like, I'm not going to touch that. And then he comes out like, what the hell is that? And I'm like, that's your job to clean it up. He's like, But so my wife and kids come down, and my wife has told me all along, Jay, you can do it. Just suck it up. It's not that bad. And when they got there, they found out how bad it was. Ruston is a small town, and it's only Tech.
Yeah.
It's like a mile around, and there isn't anything there. There's no Uber. There's no Lyft. There's no, like you can't do anything. Like, there's nothing there, right?
How do some of these universities get into these towns, man? You know,
I have no clue. But so here, like, but my mind was in just working and becoming a great coach, right?
Yeah.
So Kurt's a man. So I learned a lot from Kurt and that, and like the guys there were all real good. Players are awesome, right? So the culture there is great. Coach Holtz is great. His dad's Lou Holtz, and it's just cool to be around that staff. And I met some great guys, but. So my wife's there, and then they were going to come back July 26th, okay? And that was our last day. And then I was going to drive home with them, and I was going to fly back down. So,
how come they're driving anyway?
Just
preference.
Well, no, it's just like with their clothing, and they're staying there, and
just
to go around. Well, just to move around too. So if I'm not there, my car is out working out. Yeah. So but then. So the kids are like, man, this is like nuts. And they didn't realize how Dad lived. And I purposely lived everywhere I went bare bones because I didn't want to ever feel like I really enjoyed being away. So whenever I was with my family, it was like, man, it like improved everything because when I got home, like my mind was on them, right? And like the time we spent and like the time I spend now is like unreal.
Yeah.
Compared to just you're around folks every day and you don't realize how quickly time goes by and how much time you waste. Like even when you're with guys, like I could be here every day but I might not know you, but if I'm away and I come back like now, like I learn so much more because I'm present. Okay, so my wife and I were walking the track, right? We're at Tech and that stuff, and like every day I would dread it because I would look ahead and I would be counting the days down. And I'm thinking, man, like they're here for 2 weeks. They're here for a week. And then that's not the way I'd like to live because I couldn't really concentrate on now.
Yeah.
So it was like, well, after we're done, right, with like the bowl game and that stuff, because you always think you're playing in a bowl game. I was like, well, there's going to be a lot of jobs at that point that open up, and we're walking the track, and she's like, well, I'll start to get the house packed up, in March and that stuff, and then we'll kind of plan for selling it if we have to in June, anticipating that I would have a job at that time. And I just went down in the tank, man. Like my mind, I was like, man, I'm not sure if I can take it, right? Because then you start to think about the what ifs.
Yeah.
Like what's going to happen? Like what may happen? What happens if I don't get that job? What happens if I'm stuck at Tech? And then not saying it's a bad place. It's a great place. But my family wasn't going to move down to Tech Town.
No.
right. So my mind is just going, and I'm like, man, and I was just like at like an all-time low. So we get back, and my wife, she was always online trying to find stuff, and she was like, hey man, did you see there's a head job at Albright? And I'm thinking Albright, it's a D3 school, and I'm like, like I've worked hard. I'm at a D1 school, and it's very hard to get a college job, especially a Division I job, because everyone and their mom is trying to find, like trying to apply for it, right? So, and then like the pool is large and like the pond is small. So I was like, I'm not really sure. And then she's like, Jay, it's 30 miles from our house, 35 miles. And most folks would say, oh, that's a far drive. They have to drive. But then I'm thinking, dude, to me, that's nothing. And the more I thought about it, I was like, you know what? I'm going to email them. So I did, and they got right back to me. And then they called me. And then I'm talking to them. I'm thinking, you know what, man, this might be an awesome chance to do a lot of things, right? So I talked to my guys that are in the big-time schools. I have Cochran and them guys on my team and that stuff. They know me, endorse me and that stuff. So everyone that I talked to was like, look, dude, like that's going to show how quickly you advanced, right? In 1 year, 14 months, you went from being a guy that had no clue, right? No one knew, to going from Bama to Tech to a head job, right? So you're like, if you're going to advance in the field, you got to do it. And
do you think you have to be not have, because obviously there's exceptions, but to get a Division I job, do they want somebody that is a head strength coach at even if it is at smaller school? Like, is that almost not required but encouraged?
Well, I think it shows that you can manage everything, because I have 24 teams, and now it's like I'm enamored with stuff. So I'm not in today because I can't work with people coming in nonstop talking to me, and I'm just like, man, I'm thinking about the plans. I'm thinking about how I'm going to manage the groups and that stuff. So my official start date isn't until next week there. But I've been in trying to meet folks and that stuff, and kind of trying to figure out the fall. But
so that'll be a good challenge for you.
Oh, it'll be really good. So it's awesome, man. And they have a great staff. I mean, they have some great dudes there. Good. So it's cool to see too, like how D1 and D3. There's a lot of things that are the same, but there's a lot of things that aren't the same. And like I find that there's a lot more banter so far amongst the staff, and you're meeting folks, and like there's a lot of people that are cool, that are really good too. I mean, they're really good. They have some smart guys, some guys that are like excellent coaches and that stuff. So I think sometimes people think, oh, D1, it's always the best, and then they may look at D2, D3 like as a drop off. But I think in D3, you really have to coach. So you really need to know how to coach, and then you got to be savvy, you got to be smart. And I'm more like a Swiss Army knife, where I'm kind of like a jack of all trades. So I think that's going to help me having my background, you know, owning a gym and working with all sports and that stuff.
And even
so that's how
all those different skill levels that you did with those kids, back in the day, where I don't know. I mean, you're probably going to have some.
Incredibly
some very
talented
good
kids, and you have some people that stink, right?
It's a smaller school, and it is what it is.
Yeah, it's life.
What is the end goal for you, by the way?
Well, mine's to be a big-time guy.
Yeah. So one of these big Division I schools, you want to be the guy.
I would like to be like a Power 5 guy. But at the same time, though, I'm always all in. So it's not like I was looking. Like there's a lot of guys, they get into jobs and they're looking for their next move.
Yeah.
And I just think you cannot be great if your foot's in and out. Like I'm all in. Like now, like guys are like, well, the one thing they asked me was, what's it going to be like coaching for you at a small school? And I was like, the same as a big school, right? It was the same approach I've taken my whole life. Like you go hard, right? I mean, you're giving your best, and you're expecting the same things, right? And they're like, well, the kids don't have to come. I was like, well, if I'm there, they're going to choose to come. Like they're going to want to come, right? Because they know it's very, very important, and the culture is set. And if you're going to be great at anything, you need to put in the work. So I think that was the one thing they asked me, and then also like how long I'd stay. And I'm like, there should never be like how long am I staying, right? Because it's like I have no clue, right? It could be 1 year, it could be a month, it could be 10 years, it could be until I die. Right. So like I'm more about like, building the teams up, building up what I do, and then leaving it better than I found it. So I think that's the key. Can I mentor young guys? So if I did get this next job, and it's a great thing for me and my wife and kids, it's like, okay, like did I mentor guys to come in and then go, right? So I think that's the goal right here. I mean, if you're doing a great job, I mean, if you're building up this great gym, I would hope that you would have some guys that you would inspire, right? You would teach and train that would maybe be the next Chris Flood. Yeah. And then from there, you're able to expand and do more of the things that you like too. Yeah. So I mean, you have a child now and that stuff. And Dad, you got all
trying
that
to find
stress.
some times.
Yeah. So.
But when you talked about the staff, is that a strength and conditioning staff, or is it just you? Like, do you have assistants?
I've got one.
One. Yeah.
Yeah. Part-time.
Yeah.
So, but I used interns all the time when I was a younger coach, and even like this past year, I just had when I sold my gym, I had 3 kids in there, right, and I just had 2, and so I have interns all the time, and I love them. Because you mold them, and it's great because they have to come in. because their school
Yeah.
is tied into that. So it's like you don't have to worry about, someone quitting or saying, I'm not getting paid enough. And because once you write out checks, you can see what folks are all about.
Yeah.
And then when you see guys who work free, you also find out, because the way you do one thing is the way you do everything, right? So, you
like
can
whether
see
you're getting paid or not.
Yeah. So my mindset is like my effort will not change.
Right.
And then that's the thing that helped me, because I was able to go from the bottom at where it's the biggest fish, where guys are making millions of bucks a year.
Mm-hmm.
And you're walking by Coach Saban, and he's got statues outside of the stadium and that stuff.
Yeah.
You see all the championships, and you're around guys, and like, you're around the press, and you see all these guys. They have all these cameras and stuff there, and when you're around players like Tua, like they're 20 and they're famous, and it's kind of nuts. But then you see that you can do the same things, and it's inspiring and discouraging too at the same time, because you think like, hey, I'm better than this guy, I can do this. But you got to be able to flip that switch and say, well, I'm going to, but it depends on what I do right now. So embrace that grind.
Yeah.
And I did, and it helps me now as a coach, because I could see what it's like again if I was 23 starting out.
Yeah.
And then now it's like I can appreciate a lot more, man. So I think it was a really good thing.
How was that school in terms of academic, requirements and stuff like that?
It's high, man,
Yeah,
because those
so.
guys, they
Division III schools.
graduate the team.
Yeah.
So I'm saying, like, from a D1 standpoint, so you're talking about who? About Bama? Or
I'm talking about Albright right now.
Oh, yeah,
is
really
it similar?
good.
Like Muhlenberg is a great college academically.
Yeah.
I mean, is Albright?
Oh,
It's
yeah,
kind of just like similar,
yeah.
some similarities there from.
Whenever you're at a private school,
Yeah.
education is paramount, and plus you're at a Division III school,
Yeah.
where they're basically volunteering to play a sport, right? So you're doing the same things. Like, they're required to practice, they're required to lift weights, they're required to give like all they have, but they're doing it free.
Yeah.
Right. So that's that there. I kind of like that too, because it was me, right? I was that same kid, man.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that helps me too, because I got the D1 mindset, but I played D3 too. So
And you pushed. I mean, success at Division III. I mean, you took it pretty damn far.
Yeah,
so it's possible, and
yeah,
it's it can be trained and all that other good stuff. And
and then that's the mindset too, where it's like guys like, you went from D1 to D3, or they're looking at like how much you get paid, or like they're doing the math. It's like, dude, like, worry about you.
Yeah,
right.
Seriously.
Your goals are your goals. My goals are my goals. Right. My agenda is mine. So it's like, maybe I made enough and I don't really care about the pay. Maybe the pay is really good, and then you don't know what they offer you, right? So that's like, I'm kind of like, well, and then too, like, if like my mindset is, a lot of folks, okay, they're trying to find the perfect fit, right? Where my wife and I, and my kids, like, we make it the best fit, right? So it doesn't matter if I'm training a guy in that corner in that platform, or if I'm training in a 20,000 square foot space with the best guys in the world, right? I treat the guys the same.
Yep.
I work them hard. I push myself hard, and I make it the place to be, right? So if you're there on a Sunday, right, you're like, man, I can't wait to work with Jay, right? So I just think that's kind of the mindset, and I think that training guys at a small school, I think that kind of shows like how good you are. And then once you rise up, and then you get all the bells, the whistles, and all the big time stuff, and you can spend thousands upon thousands of bucks to buy the best gear. I think then it's like, man, you're like, man, I can really rip it up, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, do more with less, right? And then you'll do more with more. Right, so I mean, sometimes guys are looking at, you're doing less with more, but nah, man, you always do
More with more.
with like everything.
Yeah.
So.
Times of work, like workload, man. What do you think? Hourly? How many hours a day?
That's why. Listen, man. I'm like
how many interns you lining up, man?
I'm like a Navy SEAL, bro. Right? Like just like my mindset. So right now, I plan to do my same deal. Like I got to drive almost an hour, and then my first group will be at 6. So
where you head anywhere from here to get to Albright, man?
Reading.
Oh, Reading
so
area?
it's like you're going, and it's not a direct route. It's not real far. It's just like a lot of like single lane roads. So you're driving like, there's a big truck there. But again, though, I kind of have my mindset like it's my time.
Yeah.
Right. So I get my thoughts, I get my mind right, and then also it's like kind of like, I can reflect. So when I look back to my log, right, my my daily log. It's amazing when I look back, and I always look back at this day last year, and I'm like, man, I felt like that, and I can recall everything, and it's just kind of cool. And then now too, I'm actually writing a book.
Cool, man.
And so it's like A to Z. It's a personal memoir, okay, but it's self-help. So every chapter, if it's like chapter A, that chapter is awake, attack, advance, achieve. And then I just talk about just like some things that I've gone through, and like the way I approach my day, and then like things that people don't know. And they're like, man, like I have some friends that have read, like, now I'm on chapter M, and the guys are like, man, I'm like blown away, and like where I was at in life, and they're like, man, like you thought that, or you were doing that. I was like, yeah. And just like how I was able to overcome stuff, after my parents died, some things that happened to me as an adult.
Yeah.
And just like my mindset. And so like the book, the actual like name of the book is called Unshakable. So unshakable, right? And then that's where you have to live your life, right? So I just look back, and I think about like where I've been, how far I've come, and my friends like, you have to drive far. I'm like thinking, dude, like I've come far though.
Yeah.
Right? What the hell? Like now it's like I put in a lot of work, and then to look back and bitch about how far I have to drive, it's like I'm home. I was 1,200 miles, 18 and a half hour driving. When I drove back home, I realized it's like, damn, like it's like you have all these ways to kind of think about where you're at, and I'm thinking, man, my gym I could have been in bad shape.
Yeah.
Right. And then my family, I'm like, man, like that was a long ways off. But so I plan to leave around 4:00, and then like that's my time too, where I like always trained.
I was going to say that's going to cut in your fitness time, man.
So, but then I start my groups at 6, and then right now I have planned 6:00, 7, 8, 9, and then having from 10 till noon for like planning, and then lunch and that stuff. So I'm either going to get in and try to get one in real quick, run and that stuff. Because now I love to run, and I used to hate to run, but I still hate to run, but I love it.
Yeah.
Right, if that makes sense, because it's something that's hard. So I try to pick one thing that's hard, right, that I absolutely hate, and then I win that. And then when I win that, it makes everything else after that easier. Right, so and then that's my time. Like I owe that to me. So it's like I like just having that time. If I got to wake up at 3, I might go at 3. Right, so just so that I can get my work in.
Yeah.
So then I will train guys until 10, and my plan is to have that gap between 10 and noon, because I know at noon I've got more teams.
Yeah.
And then I'll train a team at 12, 1, 2, 3, and then 4. So I'll wrap up at 5 o'clock around.
Right at rush hour?
Yep, and then I'll drive back an hour, and I'll be happy to be home, and I'll do it all again. So
weekends, man.
So sometimes now without camp, because camp starts next week. So then I'll go in and help out the guys with football and that stuff. So the guys, great staff there, man. Some dudes have done right. I mean, they've done really well. They had an off year last year, so they went 0-10. So, but perfect. They trimmed the fat. So now, like the next step is up. So I was like,
same
guys,
staff,
we're going to
same
go
staff.
Oh yeah, but here the guys, they went 0-10, and then they their win percentage prior to that was 70.
Right.
So, I mean, they've had some really good teams. So they made playoffs and stuff. They've won leagues and that. So
sometimes
so
like 3-7 and 7-3 is just a few little things each game.
Yeah,
man.
yep.
And it sucks, you know. So it's like, I mean, 0-10 is rough, but that's like a nice little challenge for you guys to get in there this year and turn that thing around.
Yeah. So there, I know that next week will start to go, and then we have workouts on Saturday, on Sunday, and that stuff. But again, man, you have to embrace it, man. So because I can look at it.
That was your plan. It's what you want. You're doing what you want to do now.
And I've come a long way.
Who cares about the drive
now
and all
I'm
that
like
other
the
crap?
head guy. And then, you know what? There's a point in your life. There's a point in your life. There's a point in my life where I'm going to be unable to do this. And it's not now.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, there's a point where I will look back and say, man, I wish I would have done more. I wish I bitched less.
Yeah.
Right? And I can drive and say, man, this sucks, but guess what? It's going to suck if I think about it. It's going to suck if I do it. It's going to suck either way. So embrace it.
I think, too, even winding back to, like, there's people come in and they're complaining. You're talking about the age thing earlier. Like, you know, you played all these sports. People are, I'm broken, I'm beaten up. And it's like, you only are that if you accept it and say that. Like, it's like, why would you want, like, who wants to have a bad, you're 27. Like, you should be feeling good and you should not be like whining about it, you know.
Well, it's a choice.
It is, and it's
a choice.
And it's the same thing with the drive. It's the same thing with everything else. It's like, you know, it's however you frame it, however you want to make it.
Yeah,
it does. It does suck, probably, right?
Yeah, it
like,
does.
Who the hell wants to drive an hour?
Nobody wants to wake
whatever.
up at 4 o'clock.
I know.
In the morning. Come on, man.
Well,
but here's the thing too. Every day is a choice, right? So my book, right? Awake, attack, advance, achieve, right? So if you don't wake up, and I'm not talking about well here too, okay? The one thing, this precedes everything, okay? Mental toughness precedes, okay? It precedes commitment, accountability, toughness, okay? And I'm not talking about that, like I'm talking about just being tough, okay? It precedes being a good teammate, spouse, right? Anything. Okay, if you're mentally weak when that alarm clock goes off at 4 a.m., what are you going to do? Hit snooze. And then you may not wake up, right? And then that means I can't get to work on time. So I'm not accountable, right? I'm not committed. I'm not disciplined. I'm not any of those things.
And that's all the things you want from the people you work with.
Yes, and then how can I expect you to give me your best if I'm full of shit?
You're showing up late.
Yeah, it's like coming in there.
Coffee stain on your shirt or something.
Yeah, it's like, man. So, but then again, I mean, there's guys that are just in there, and they are machines. So you train yourself to be that machine, right? So here, man, I wake up, and this is no joke, okay? When I lost the weight, right, my wife, she bought me this, and I used to think it was corny. I was like, there's no stinking way, okay? Nutrisystem, right?
Just the shakes, man.
No, the meals and that stuff.
Oh,
so
the meals.
They would ship it to me.
Oh, cool.
At Bama, I got this box, and it was filled with food, a month's worth. And you think about food, you think about a month's worth, right? You think about a giant fridge with turkey, steak, you know, chicken. You got all this stuff. You're like, man, this is a lot of food. Pre-packed. It took out all the brain work, man. And I'm not real smart now. You know, I'm smart enough, right, to know that, you know, I needed to have this change, right? But it helped me because everything was preset. Like, I knew exactly what 1,000 calories was, and it's not much. So the first week, 1,000 a week, right? 1,000 a day, okay, for 1 week. And I was like...
You dropped like 12 pounds or what?
I dropped 10.
Yeah, I bet.
10, right? 10. And then the next week, I would follow that for like 5 days, and then I would eat more stuff on like, you know, the weekends and stuff. But I got down, and I am obsessed with just keeping track of that. And we're like cars, right? If you put in gas and you drive around, the next day you got to fill up that tank. Mm-hmm. But if you're sitting there in the same spot and you put in gas, right? The gas is the same. And then you try to put in more gas, you start to have to build the car out, right? And then it's like we're like one giant tank then, right? And I was on my way to being a giant tank, right? So there it's like just knowing what you can and can't do. So I basically every night I have my stuff pre-packed. So I like now I just take like pre-packed stuff I'd like buy. I like to eat certain bars and that stuff. So I know like exactly how much food I take in. Okay, and then from there I will actually at times wear to bed like what I plan to wear that next day. So I will wear the gear that I will lift in. So I just wake up, I grab my bag, and out the door.
Yeah.
So there's no thought. I don't have to think about, what the heck am I wearing? What am I going to pack? What do I got to do? Because that takes away strength and it wastes time. All right. So I basically will wear the same things. I'll eat the same food and that stuff.
Yeah.
So it's the same. And then from there, then I drive to work, or like there at Tech, I would ride my bike, right? And I would get there, I would do the same thing. I would make coffee, I'd get my laptop set, I'd get my journal up, I'd get my notes out, I'd get all my stuff set, make the coffee, right? So I would be out there on the track by 4:18 every day, 4:18.
Yeah.
And then I would have a preset amount I'd run, and then I would try to kill my time. And the one thing that I like about that, okay, whenever you run, you cannot fake it, you cannot lie. Right? When you go in the gym, like I can come in the gym, start to bench press, start talking, I'm like, this stinks, this is hard, I can do something else instead, because I know what works. I know what can help me.
Yeah.
And it's hard, right? So, but when I run, if I run outdoors or if I run out in the streets, if I'm out 4 miles, I need to get my ass back. Right, so I have to, know that, if I run, like I just like that whole feeling now. Plus, my lungs and all that stuff are great. Now I can feel like a huge change with my heart and just health and my heart rate and that stuff. But so,
are you doing any weight training? You're just running?
Not much at all, man. Yeah, so I run, but I got a lot of things I've learned with styles of training, like 1 by 20. Reps and that stuff, and just like doing stuff with my kids and myself, like things that I can do that are going to really help me, with a lot of things without having to like overload yourself. But so here, I basically earn my shower. So I'm drenched. I feel great.
Yeah.
My coffee's done. Pour it up, drink that, shower. And then I like basically fast then, because I won't eat until like late probably around like maybe noon.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I just feel great, and I can feel like my abs. I feel like I'm ripped.
Feeling
just
good.
like,
Awesome, right?
Yeah. So but
that stuff
then,
carries over in other stuff.
But my day, and in there it's like I just attack. I like attack stuff, and like your mind, like it's amazing, because everybody has depression. Everyone does, I think. Okay, and you can't stop that. Right?
Mm-hmm.
You can't stop feelings, and then if you take meds, there's some folks that need to take things. But I really think people are anxious, they're depressed because of diet, because of what they do. Right? I mean, if you don't look good, you're looking at yourself, and you live within yourself. Okay, so right now we know where this building starts and stops. Okay, so we know where we start and stop too. But the building isn't really expanding, right? It will age, but you can come in here and you can restore it, and you can basically keep this going forever. But with us, like we got to mentally do the work. Like with this space, you can come in and you can paint. You can put drywall. But with me, like nobody can really change me except me.
Yeah.
And I think that's tough. I think that concept is tough, right? And when you're looking at yourself every day, getting older. Right, you see you wrinkle, you get some gray hairs, you may lose some hair. You're thinking, man. Then you start gaining some weight. You're like, man. And then you're eating things like tomorrow I'll change. No, tomorrow I'll change. And then that becomes the next day, becomes the next week, and then years go by. So if you're gaining, excuse me, if you're gaining 2-3 pounds every year, after 10 years, that becomes a lot.
Yeah, for
right.
sure.
So I just think that like every day we make a choice, and you can choose to be active, right? You can choose to attack, or you can choose to receive what everything else is going to throw in you, right? And then you got to respond to that. So I think that this past year, like, I really worked hard, just attacking everything. And I think that, if you take stuff to help you not feel down, you're accepting that you need something else to make you move, right? And then I think that when you're active, the endorphins and that stuff, you can feel that. Like after I train, like I feel really great, man. I drink, coffee I think is good too, but that's kind of a way to if you're down. But like you need to have feelings, like you need to be sad. Like if I'm down, like it causes me to want to push, or it can cause you to retreat too. So you got to be able to say, man, I'm down today. Like I don't like where I'm at, and then you attack it. So I attacked my diet, I attacked my fitness, attacked my dreams. And I think like with my book too, like every day, like if I have thoughts, I just think about things, I jot those down and I attack it. Yeah. So my goal was to write this book. Kurt inspired me because Kurt wrote his book, and he talked about training and that stuff and the things that he's gone through and the things he's seen. So it's like basically I just made that choice, and I thought about it a long time. But now I'm at a point where I'm living everything that I preached, and I feel good about sharing it now. So in the past it was like, there's things I did do well, but it was like kind of short term.
Yeah.
Now it's like kind of like I feel so good. I'm like, man, like I don't want this to stop.
Right. So you're feeling good, man.
Yeah. Trying my best.
Yeah, that's a hard thing too. Like, the things that you say, and if you just basically feeling a little bit like a hypocrite sometimes, where
there's a lot of folks that are frauds, man. They're frauds.
A couple years to kind of get this, where you start to live everything.
41 years, 41, and like I really think like most of us are frauds. Like I was a fraud, and like not meaning like a bad way. I mean, like now
I've thought the same thoughts. I know exactly what you're saying,
dude. I've got days now where I'm not, I'm like, you're tired, but the more you're able to convince yourself to flip that switch, the more you train yourself. Okay, we talked about motivation. That comes and goes, man. I mean, there's days you're just gassed.
Yeah.
But that's when technique and discipline takes over, right? I mean, that's when it happens, right? That's when training comes in. And then since we train guys, right, like everything, like guys will say, well, 80% is mental, 20% is physical, blah, blah, blah. It's 100% mental. 100, like that's the key, okay? And like guys say, well, how? Because everything we do starts here.
Yeah.
It starts here. Like we got to tell ourselves we're doing this, right? And when it gets hard, okay? And then here's the thing too, and we talked about this, okay? People ease up when the lifting gets heavy, right? And you got to train yourself to break through. Like you break through when others break down. And that's the key, man. That's the key, because when like here, we're saying about people, you tell them to do max reps. Okay, when you tell someone like, hey, max out, nobody knows their own max. Like I don't know my own max. I just know what I've done, right? So it's like you got to get to a point when you feel the strain, okay? And I stress this to my guys, okay? When you feel strain and pain, okay? Well, strain and pain will equate to gain when you're able to break through, okay? And you got to recognize this is when I begin. Like this is when I start. This is when I, this is me at my best, okay? So you need the mental anchors, okay? So I'm like sure you're out at times. You're driving your car and there's a song that pops up. And you're like, oh man, that's back in the day, right?
Yeah.
And you think you do a little dance, or all stiff, the waiting for your dance, and you really, it takes you back in time, and then something too may pop up, and it brings you back to pain, right? There's things like in school, the intercom would kill me. It would be like ding dong, and I'm like, oh boy. And like, yes, would you please send Jason Prater down there? And I'm like, oh no, right? And then like when my mom died,
like Pavlov's dog, man.
So it's classical conditioning at its best. And I taught psychology. My background is psych. And so basically, when you train, okay, and when I train guys outdoors, we talk about this all the time, the mental anchors, okay? And I can see it when guys start to strain their gut, when guys start to feel that pain, guys begin to ease up, and then it's called the theory of reinforcement, okay? If you've ever watched a race, okay, have you ever thought, like, why did that guy slow up? He's right there at the end, right? But at that point, winning isn't the motivation. It's relinquishing of the pain in the legs. It's getting a drink. It's getting your wind back. Like, those are things that are more important than the win, okay?
Yeah.
But then you'll see a guy that just crushes through. You think, how the hell did that guy? Because he trained himself to break through, all right? So when you think about strain, pain, to get to that gain, right, you need to be able to push yourself in the gym and have a mental anchor that you can lock in on. So when we do like sprints and guys are starting to strain, right, I'm like, hey guys, this is where we start, and I want you to look around this field, all right, and I want you to picture in your mind's eye this place being packed, and I want you to pick a point, pick a seat, right, because there's going to be a time when you're going to feel like shit, just like you're feeling right now, and you're going to look back and you're going to break through and you're going to say, no, this is where I begin. These guys have no shot, and you build your mind to be unshakable, and you become that machine. And you can see guys, they just turn up. You're like, man, let's go. And everyone does. And then you can you can draw that during the game too.
Yeah.
Like, guys, you know that we were here and we were busting our ass and we were about to quit, but we didn't. We broke through. Let's do it, right? And then you see those guys, that last drive, you punch those guys right in the face because you know everybody worked just as hard.
Yeah.
And nobody's going to give you shit, right? And anything that's worth anything in life, anything that's worth, anything to you or me is tough. And we reflect on hard times, right? You don't look back and say, hey, Jay, I just recall when Tommy gave me this free weight rack here. It was great. I did curls. It's like, good, right? Or, hey, my parents bought me a Porsche. And I'm like, man, this guy's a douche, right? You look back and say, man, I worked real hard for this, right? It might be like a cracked up rack. Yeah. You're looking like, damn, dude, this is a piece of shit. But you're like, man, I built this, right? And you take pride in that, right? And then it's like, so you want to embrace that, embrace the pain, right? Make that shit hard on yourself. Right? And then I think, too, the one thing that I always talk about, zero ground, okay, and death ground. Every day I reset, right? So I reset and I repeat. Now, I repeat if it's good. I regroup if it was bad, right? Because there's days you're going to get punched in the face. You're like, man, I feel like quitting. Mm-hmm. Right? But that's when you don't repeat. You got to regroup. And then you repeat. Right? Meaning that you restart your day at zero. Not like this, okay? Because guys, you got to be able to ignore praise.
Yeah. And
you got to be able to ignore disappointment. Right? Because guys are going to give you all this, oh man, you're the best. And I don't know how often I read, I sent out a tweet of kids like, you're the best at this coach. Or these guys who walk in there, they're like, yeah, I'm the best. It's like, dude, you got to ignore that noise. Because when you start to think you're like the best, you lose your edge. And then when you start to think like you're down and you're not good, you lose your edge. So you got to have that balance, right? So I just think about me when I was at my low points, okay? That's death ground, right? When I didn't have shit, right? I was hard to beat because I was grinding. I was climbing, right? I had my back against the wall. And I purposely put myself on death ground, right? When I was away, my existence was torture, and I loved it, right? It might sound nuts, because I would tell myself every day, if anybody is built for this shit, it's you.
Yeah.
And I would hear guys bitch and moan about, not being in AC, or not having their own desk, or, not, having a shirt. And I'm like thinking, come on, dude, you're soft. And that's a guy who will never beat me. And I would sap the life out of them. And they were thinking, how does this guy smile when he's got to clean up these racks or mop? But I loved it.
Yeah.
Because I could do it. Right? And I'm like, yeah, you guys can. Eat it. Right? I'm mopping the floor. So and I think that's the edge. So,
that guy, David Goggins?
Actually, Goggins came down and spoke at the school.
He had a video out the other week. It's a heat
Bama.
wave. He's out running. He's like,
this is
like,
awesome.
hey, I'm out running. some guy pulls his car up and he's like, hey man, why the fuck
Zucchini
you out here? He goes, because you're not. Like, I'm going to do shit that you're not going to do. Like, you don't have to do what I do. I'm going to do it. Like, it's like it's one of my favorite videos of his because he's like, I'm not telling you to be out here. I'm doing it. And, you know, whatever.
Yeah,
it's like,
but see, my expectations aren't yours. And, like, what makes me tick isn't what makes you tip.
That guy's a maniac,
guys
by the
like
way.
Goggins and that stuff, they're great. But you don't need to be him to be great.
Right.
And, like, you don't need to be the guy who gets first place or third place. You just have, like my thing is finish. That's it. So whenever I start things, that's why when I left Tech, the hardest thing was not finishing, like not being able to finish what I started. And but I'm continuing though. That's the thing, because the finish line is imaginary. Success is imaginary because you always reset it.
I think people have a hard time with that. Just being in the coaching thing, where like those kids, those parents, whatever. It's like, this coach told me he's staying for 4 years, and now he bounced after 2 months to get a better job. But it's like, this guy has goals too, you know. Every individual athlete has a goal. He wants to reach a certain level. It's like it's still you know,
it's hard. Man.
So you couldn't finish at Louisiana Tech, but you're still personally working towards the things you want to work on. And
plus
really,
the guys, they'll
if people care about you, they would
Yeah,
understand that. You know?
They do though. But then the players were like, Jay, that's awesome, man. And like, there's guys that have sons and, you know, they have kids, and you know, the players are like, man, I have my daughter who's like just turned 2, and they're in the same boat as me. Right. It's hard. It's hard. Right.
It is.
But like, as soon as you like really embrace just that whole mindset of it's going to be hard, it gets easier. Because I think people have an illusion of choice, right? They think, oh, well, I have a choice if I'm going to get to point B. There is no choice. It takes what it takes. Like, it takes what it takes. Like, for years, I thought, I could just go in and be a head guy at a big school. I mean, I've got the talent.
Right.
I've got some skills, but it takes what it takes. And unless you've been in like the shoes that I've been in, unless you've been in my shoes, a lot of folks don't realize like what's involved. And a lot of folks too, they talk about money. They're like, you know, look at how much this guy gets paid, or he's overpaid, or, you know, I should get paid that. It's like, look, dude, you're not willing to do what that guy does. Okay.
You get paid what you are, really.
Well, you get paid by your tolerance for stress. That's how you get paid, right? The more stress you can take, the higher your pay is. Okay, how much shit you can take, because when you're Cochran, okay, guys will say, well, he gets paid a ton. Well, yeah, he does, but guess what? If the boat sinks, he sinks the farthest.
Yeah.
Right? And there's a lot of guys that like the idea of that big check. Right? They like the idea of being out there in the field. They like the idea of hearing their voice over the loudspeakers in front of all those fans.
Being that guy.
They like that. They love it. But when like somebody gets on their ass, they fold up like a cheap suit. Right? They're like folding up like that tent. Right? And then they're like, oh, you know, it's like, nah, man, you got to be accountable, dude. And when you're sitting there in the office with all those guys that are making major bucks, and it looks like you're making the wage of like the lowest guy when you're also making a ton.
Yeah.
You know, they're like, look, dude, guess what? There's a door. It swings this way and it swings that way. And you don't want it to go that way. So get it done. Right? And like that's saying you get paid by the pressure that you can take. And I mean, there's guys that maybe aren't as good as some at their job, and then you'll get guys too, specifically in this field. Okay, like I know I've been with guys like theorists. You got guys that are, you know, they can read books. They're going, hey man, you should be doing this amount of reps and sets, right? And you're like, come on, dude, right? You're dealing with like grown ass men, right? And it's tiring, and guys are hurting. And there's a certain amount of, hey, man, you got to be a practitioner. Like, you need to be a guy that can put in that work. You need to be a guy that can push and lead men, right? And then there's guys that, no, they may be smarter. Like, you may know 50 times as much about the body than me. You may know more about the programming and what, like, theoretically will work. But maybe you can't get the guys to work like I can.
Right.
So that's why you see the difference between guys, too, and how you can make staff up. And then I think, too, when, like, I build up my staff, you have to have scientists, right? That's one role. That guy might be your team dork, but he's got to be a cool dude, right? You got the enforcer, right? You got the WWE guy, right? The guy that's like the rah-rah guy.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got to have the guy that's like the brain, right? The guy that can manage the whole group.
Yeah.
And like a lot of times guys think that everybody has to be the exact same, right? You don't want guys to think exactly like you,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because if you do, you stay the same. You need guys that are going to challenge you,
Yeah.
right? But you need guys that can stay in their lane and know their role, and then you can learn off the entire team. So I think that, I think that's very important. But the bottom line is you got to have that mindset that you can do it.
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
So,
what else you got, man? Anything good? I think we hit about everything.
Yeah,
I
man,
feel
it was
like
good. I thought
we got like 90 minutes.
Yeah, that's a lot, man. So
any
now
questions for me,
you
man?
go
I
back
tried to
here,
open it up.
do you like edit it and stuff? But
No.
Yeah.
No, man, we just put it up.
straight through. It's great. Yeah. So my thing is like, why did you get into this? Okay, like why did you choose to get into this field?
Good question. So probably some of that stuff you talked about earlier with like you just played sports like the entire life. I was involved in something. So went to college, didn't really have that, and I didn't do anything, and like you kind of lost that. And you talked about these ups and downs, and just mentally wasn't a good spot. So it's like, all right, I got to figure out what's going on. Start coaching, things like that. Started when I was finishing college. I was personal training. Then I'm starting to do this stuff. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna get the CSCS. I'm not even gonna renew my personal training cert in 3 years. Like, I'm just gonna focus on 3 years. When this thing expires, I'll get that test. I'm gonna start working with I was always involved, always into the NFL Combine. I was always into stats. I was always in that track and field times. Like improving stuff like that.
Right.
Like, always into it. So. So I wanted to kind of shift into that stuff, and I don't know, man. You just start working with people, and it's fun. I mean, I enjoy going to work every day. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So
plus you
plus
help folks like reach their goals and that stuff. So I think it's
and it's having
very
freedom
cool.
to control your life and do what you want to do. Like I was out with my friends last night, and they might be getting some nice paychecks, but they just hate their job, man. And
how many
like,
people
damn.
do you meet that bitch and moan about their lives, man? Like you get one life, and then. This is the thing, okay? How often have you heard this? Okay, you get one life, right? You get one
Mm-hmm.
life, right? But you get every day. Like you get one life, but you get one day, and the day that you're in, like you can repeat having a great day. 365 days.
Yeah.
That equates to one life,
Right.
right? But guys, like they live miserable days. And they look back and their lives stink. And then you think about it, okay? You get your birth year, right? They're important dates.
Yeah.
You get your death. And you got to make sure that hyphen is worth it.
That dash, man.
Yeah, yep, dash.
For sure.
Hyphen, the hell is a hyphen? The hell's a hyphen? Is that
I just said a dash. I don't
dash,
freaking
it's the
know,
same
man.
thing,
It's
like
all
the
good.
dash. Yeah, I'm using a science term. Right? But yeah. So,
So why did I get into that? Why did I start my own place? You talked about, I don't know if this was even on or if it was before, and you wanted to be like your own guy.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed that part of it. I've worked on some coaching staffs. Was an assistant there, but you always had your little
ideas
gripes and
that
stuff,
thing,
and
yeah.
you're like, just work. I don't know. Plus, I growing up, even I think now I prefer time to myself. So like, I think I was always a little bit of an introvert, which. Getting into this field, people were like, "This is not a good idea."
Yeah.
Like this, are you sure you want to do that? You got to work with people. So it's like getting in here and doing this stuff is cool. I like to go home and unwind. I like to. Maybe it's selfish in one regard where I don't really want to take. I don't want to be in a position where you got input coming in from a lot of people. I kind of wanted to have. I'm not a control freak by any means, but I wanted to just do my own thing. If I wanted to work, if I wanted to take a 6-hour break in the middle of the day, I can. Set it up, work in the morning, work in the afternoon, have some time to myself in the middle of the day. Where can you do that? Getting a 9-to-5 job's not going to allow it. So
plus too, the one thing that's nuts, a lot of guys that I've met that are in this field, they're able to turn it up when they need to, and I'm like the same way. Like I can go from chilling here to turn up. Right? You guys are like, man, this dude's wow. And that's where I've been my whole life. But I'm like a guy that's a culture guy, like building teams, like building that vibe. And I'm always been a high five, chest bump, you shove, smelling salt, get you going, right? And I was amazed by the amount of guys that I met that won't say hi to you, walk past you, you're working with them, don't say boo to you. And I was kind of surprised. So like you saying that you're introvert, that doesn't shock me. But there's a difference too between being somebody who's shy, but you can still be effective and talkative and be able to shift gears. Where I think that a lot of times guys may actually pull back from what they love to do because they feel they can't do it because they're not extroverted or they're not always
just because you're an introvert
you can be able to go up and down. I mean, you can turn it on and off. I mean,
doesn't mean you're an ass.
So.
Just because you could be quiet, but you could still say hello. You don't have to be an ass.
Oh yeah, which there are guys that are like, I'm just using it.
Right. Yeah.
Because I was shocked how there's I guess they're just assholes.
I think so.
Right? Where they just walk by. Where I kind of like, man, like the heck, where they're just in like their own zone. Right. They have the moods, but. Then again, you try not to judge because you got to be good at that too. Because like you have your things that you're dealing with,
they have
things that I deal with. So you can't take it to heart.
You don't know what's going on in their life, but another thing too. I mean, you saw some of the kids I was working with before, like younger, whatever, 5th to like 9th grade, say, or 8th grade, whatever. But I have some kids that come in like every day, and like this is like their thing. So. They're good athletes. Some of these kids are good wrestlers. But when you're like 11, like when I was 11, I didn't come and freaking deadlift and do some cleans. Like we weren't doing that. Throw medicine balls around. Like it's cool. Climb some ropes. Let's, I don't know. And they love it. And it's like that's what's cool because they're with some older guys. It's perfect, man.
So it's cool because you see how people.
It affects your life forever.
Like they mentor you, right? So it's like how I'm older than you. And it's almost the same way. Like we're still cool though. Like even though I'm older, you're not like, man, this guy's older than me. This guy's a turd or a goof.
Yeah.
Right. Where these kids are like looking up to you, and then there's younger kids that look up to them. So it's like the same thing. We have that in life. But I just think though too. Do you feel like at times it bothers me because I think things are manufactured though. Like it's a shame that when I was younger. I would ride my bike to the gym, right? And not knowing like what to do, but older guys like me, like guys that were dads and that stuff would show me stuff and it was all wrong. Now I look back and think, shit, man, I was doing a lot of stuff that, could have killed me. Right?
Yeah.
But then the guys were great dudes. They were big, they were jacked up, and guys were just like, I was like, man, that's one of what a real man does, right? And then it was like a choice that I made. And I found a way. Like I would ride my bike that I had to work for, and then as a kid I had the paper route, and I was up at 4 o'clock from the time I was 11 until my mom died when I was 17. And it's just like I was like that guy. Like I always wanted to find things to do, like always things for me to improve. So I like to read, I like to learn, I like to try things, like to take risk and that stuff. But now I think. A lot of the stuff, the parents, they manufacture it. So it's like they're like, oh, I saw this guy. Like maybe it's Chris Flood, or it's like here it's Brick House Gym, or if it's Fast, right? Where it's like the kids are, they're younger, and it's like, man, it's like it kind of makes me feel bad that they can't just go in and just play, right? They can't just go in and kind of train and find out about themselves at like the court. Right, it's like now it's like everyone's at home and they're playing their games and they're on a headset. And when I would have to ride my bike to my friend's house to actually play the game against them, right? So I think there's a lot of good things how like we're doing this stuff, we're helping, we're mentoring, we teach, but a lot of it I question how like organic it is, right? Is that kind of like that's the one thing
we're trying to replicate the playtime in here instead of having them out playing.
Yeah,
almost.
and like trying to make friends, like it's like you have to go places where now it's like you can go online. We have like virtual friends, like you're liked, or like you get likes in your site. It's like, man, like what's really real? Like, I mean, do these guys really like me, or do they hate me? Because I've got more guys that are friends that hate me than actually guys who hate me, that I know hate me, right? Yeah. Does that make sense? Like, so it's almost like, I may have like 3,000 friends, but like I think they like me, but 2,999 of them hate me. And like the guys that I think like me actually may be in that group that hate me, right? Yeah. And then the people that like me, there might be one or two that really are like honest, that are like really happy for me. So I think that we live in that world where it's like this, like, the social networking world where it's like, man, like what is really like real? Yeah. It's like kind of, if you look at it, like shit, man, it's kind of strange, but
it's not good for the future either.
Yeah.
I mean, you got kids. I got a little one, but I mean, it's like some of these things, like they like get sucked in and just stare at a television. Like a 2-year-old you'll see somewhere, like, I don't know what it does to their brains, but it's like totally into it. Like,
but here's the thing, though,
Jesus,
but
what
it's
the heck
evolution,
is going on, man?
Right? So, I mean, the bottom line is, like,
yeah, you're right.
You
can't
have
argue
to adjust
with
and
that.
adapt, because man, we were at some point crawling, and then we became upright, and then we started to build and use tools, and now the tools have changed. Right, so I think the one thing like folks will look at and say, well, this guy's on his cell phone nonstop, but maybe the cell phone is giving him more than you, right? Because I've got some dumbass friends, and there's some folks that think I'm dummy too, right? So it's like depending on what you value in life, or like what you offer me, maybe the phone is the best bet to help you obtain your goals or grow.
Yeah.
Right. So who the hell am I to say, hey kid, you can't be on that? It's like, well, it's life now. It's the world, right? So if you're not on it, are you restricting your kids? So I mean, there's a lot, right? So I mean, it's
no,
not
I'm saying
clear,
like just
clear,
like
clear
it's
cut.
like mind warp. Like, what's this really doing to the brain? Like, kids' brain going to develop the same way, by use of technology than through human contact.
But
these are things we don't know.
It's not though. Like your brain will not develop the same way. It's developing a new way, which will over time
Hopefully
be like
better.
the new, like you're going to improve in that stuff. And then like the way we grow, the way we learn, the way we advance, like we're constantly going to change. But it's not the change that we're used to, but that becomes a new reset point.
The new norm.
Right, yeah. So it's like, because think about this, okay? My parents would always say to me, they're like, Jay, when we were kids, and now I'm sure you're a father, you're going to say the same thing. When I was a kid, and I find myself when I played sport, it's like, look, dude, it's not that day and age, right?
Yeah.
It's like now you look at all these the crime and that stuff. Okay, folks look back and say, well, back in the day, like back when it was like like the Vikings and like those times, like that was a violent time, and guys will look back and say, man, that was really tough to live. And then now, like the violence now, this is the most violent time to live, right? So what happened though, the technology has changed. So our doctors, they're much more improved. We don't die at the same rates, right? So basically, I could be a wild man. I can hurt you. What once would have killed you years ago, you can beat now. You can live. Right. So it's like you look at how the world has changed. With violence and with technology and what we access and how we access things, right? Now I think it's like we're really seeing what we were capable of centuries ago, but now at a much more advanced pace, because we can do things faster. Like you can buy guns, you can buy knives, you can go online and learn things real quick, where I would have physically had to ride my bike or walk or drive to get a book, to read the book. Now I'm like, okay, search, boom, here. right? So it's like we're kind of trying to slow guys down, I think, too. It's like, hey, slow up. And it's like, well, why? Right?
And I think, too, like they always were trying to slow up advancement and, factor, whatever. Like people talk about jobs and whatnot. We're going to lose jobs because of this technology. But you're going to create new jobs. At the same time, it's like it happened 50 years ago. It happened 100 years ago. People aren't working in factories like they were. But then this new job, this new field became. So it's like with what people view as negativities, more positive comes out. Everything compounds. And
plus, too, you think like sink and swim, right? I mean, like, well, what the heck, man? It's life. Like just in our field.
Yeah.
You think about this, okay? Like the medical field is huge, and we're paying insurance. I mean, things are so expensive now. They tapped into everything, tapped into training. They can offer things free, because they basically want you to go to their place when you get sick, because they know when you get hurt, you're going to get paid a ton.
I know what you're talking
about. The
doctors
are going to get paid a ton, right? And then you get guys that were
some of these nonprofits in the area
frowned upon,
taking over the area.
Yeah. So they're frowned upon, right? You're like, okay, the athletic trainer now becomes a coach. Where when I played, people hated him, because they were keeping you off the field. Now they're supposedly keeping you on the field, and it's like, well, that's a conflict, right? If I'm allowing you to train me, right, and you're not being paid to train me, but the doctor who's getting paid $300,000 a year by repairing your ACL, right, is paying you to ultimately train, right? Does that make sense? So it's like,
okay, put it that way,
it's a conflict, because how am I giving you longevity or sports performance when it's like, look, dude, if I keep you healthy,
we're not making money.
I'm not getting paid, or that guy's not getting paid, and I don't have a job. So like to me, it's kind of like goofy, and I think the whole spin of things has changed, and that's why I'm glad I'm out of it. Well, I'm not out of it, I'm in it, because I can see how that's going to impact college, and it actually has too, because they're going to change like a lot of the rules and that stuff, where you get guys that are in lab coats who are going to tell you how to coach, and I just think that the way the schools are run now, they know that these
high schools
people
are
colleges. High schools, I think, more so, because that's the first place, because they know that if they can get sponsorships, if they sponsor a school or they sponsor a town, the logos are on the field. So the parents are watching the games. They're getting acquainted with the coaches. They're getting acquainted with the strength staff. So when something happens, they get hurt or get sick, they're more prone to go to that place.
Yeah.
So, and then they have a gym inside of it now. So it was like, say, for example, St. Luke's, okay? You get hurt, you're going into their place, and then you get well there, and then like, okay, well, you can weight train here, and then they have somebody that does diet, so it's like
the physical therapy,
one-stop shop, So it's like everybody gets culturalized into that mode.
So then, like, brainwashing here a little
20
bit.
years, well, yeah, but that's the way the world works. But can you ever take away the real thing? No, but the way you brand yourself, the way you model your stuff, it has to change. You have to evolve. And whether that's through technology, through just being smarter as far as having more wit, more savvy, right? But I just think now I like read things and I'm like, man, like guys are like, this guy's the best coach. And it's like, the guy's the best coach, or is he just a nice guy? Right? Because with what we do, we had to be kind of like a fraud too at times. And you had to be a nice guy. You had to be, hey, you're doing a great job. It's like, no, he's not. Like, but you need to eat.
You need
your wife needs a coat.
Whatever. Yeah.
Your kids need food. Right? You need a house. And it's like, when people are offering things free, to me that was kind of like the end. Well, not the sole end game, but I was just like tired of it. It's like, okay, like it's free. Like, what's the value in free? Right? And then why would a parent want to spend extra when they're mandated to work out at the school?
I'll tell you this.
So it's like you have to come in and train. Okay, Chris, so your son has to go in to train with a coach that you may not want.
Yes.
Right? And then the high school coach is telling you, well, your son might not play. Right, and then if you don't go, he might not play. If he trains elsewhere, he'll be looked upon as like a jerk to his friends. Okay. At the same time, the coach can leave and quit his job whenever he wants. Okay. And ultimately, if you're playing a sport like football, right? Okay. How many guys can play on that field at one time?
On your team,
Yeah.
11.
Right. Okay, so how many guys are in a high school gym at one time?
I mean,
like training for that team or sport.
25 to 40.
Yeah, okay, a large group. Okay, so if you need to be at that gym, how comes only 11 guys are playing at one time? And then there's guys that don't train that play because the coaches are full of crap because they want to monopolize you. They want to make sure that they control what you can and can't do. Okay, now on top of that, they stress that you should be doing whatever it takes to improve. All right, you should be doing extra. But when you do extra, they're like, well, what are you saying? We're not doing the right things. So they contradict everything they preach. So to me, it's like I know things as a strength coach that my kids should not do. Like my daughter now, she's going into ninth grade. Well, will be in ninth grade, and it's like they bring in folks to train the team, and I'm like, look, like you're not building teamwork because they're not part of the team. Like they're not part of the school's team, and they're not doing anything to build it. Like working out in a weight room doesn't build teamwork, right? Culture does. The way you like do things, the people that are involved are all in, right? If you're working for an outside group, you're not immersed in that group. And how are you getting the edge when the same guy trains three, 4 teams? Your group is in the same place. They have somebody giving you the same plan.
I know.
That's stupid. Like that to me is like, hey, Chris, you're going to train with me. And it's like, okay, we're doing the same thing. And then you're like, well, I want to beat Jay. Like, are you going to continue to train with me and not do anything outside of that group? No, it's stupid, right? Because you're trying to get an edge. And I just think like they monopolize guys. They kind of put this fear factor into the parents, and then from there you're paying school taxes. So you're paying these guys wages and stuff. So you're paying a guy to hold your kids back, and you're paying health care to basically pay these guys, right? And then it's like you get hurt, and then you're stuck going. So to me, it's just like a cycle of bullshit. That's kind of a side topic, but that's the way.
But it's not, because it is the way it is going here. So people are in the area and they hear it. It's like that is what's going on. So
and then you're considered an asshole if you don't go, or you're not part of the team. It's like, well, I mean, there's a certain thing called free will, and there's also something called competitiveness. And I train myself, and I train my kids, and I teach my kids and the guys I train. That's the number one thing you need to be, a competitor. Now, I'm not saying that you're not, part of a group, like, because everything is interdependent. Like, you're never independent, right? Because you need folks to help you. But at the same time, like, what's the agenda? Is it to truly help the kids, or is it to help themselves, the coaches, or line some guys' pockets, or this guy's a friend of this coach, or it's like, come on, man, like, I mean, is this guy the best guy? Because I've seen a lot of hacks, and I'm sure folks thought that I was at some point a hack, and I've been at schools, and I've trained schools for a long time, and I've seen how things work, and I've helped teams win a lot of state championships, and I taught at places where I was the man, and I was the best thing since sliced bread. And then they have a guy that opens a gym that's from the school and from the town, and they manipulate it so that guy goes in. And then they told me at times, they didn't want a guy in. Schools did, okay? They said, we don't want this group in, okay? Here's what you need to bid. Here's what you need to bid. And it just so happened at one point, right, I had to resubmit a bid to retain a spot. And when I got the call that I wasn't back again, it wasn't because they said, hey, you aren't good enough. Because I know I do have the skills. They said, oh, hey, man, so-and-so underbid you. So that means to me that you're not trying to have the best. Okay, which if my kids are at school, they should have the best guy. Right? It doesn't matter how much it costs, because I pay taxes, right? I want my kids to have the absolute best that you can afford, that you budget, right? But I guarantee they had the same guy in, and they told him the same thing.
Yeah.
This is what Jason will bid. You need to bid at this point.
This is good. I like this kind of
happens
like this
all
dirt,
the time.
Man.
Yeah.
With the school stuff, if I The only thing I could say is that these guys or females that come in and coach, the only positive that I've seen is that some of the sports coaches, like there's a pretty good lacrosse program that was like, none of the girls like this guy. We'll pay you. Can you just come work with us? I've had that.
Oh yeah. See,
so,
and that's the thing. And that's
where
that.
Training.
Yeah.
So,
yep. And they know that. And here's the thing too, where I think as a parent, I can go in and say, look, like I'm not going to have this group train my kids because this isn't part of your team. Like this isn't right. And if this guy comes in, why can't I? Right. And there's we have a contract. We have this. It's like, well, then what you're saying is that I have a choice then. That I don't need to go in because that's your deal. That's not mine. Right. And then my last point here, I guess, okay, if you're having a hard time in math class, okay, would the math teacher ever say, Chris, you cannot get extra help after school? Would they ever say you cannot go? You cannot go and get help? No. Their day's done at 3. They're like, go, dude, go. Right? It makes their job easier if you're better at math. Right? How comes in sports, though, that you can't do something outside of what the team does? It's like a big deal. That never made sense.
It was like a selfish ego thing with coaches.
Right, but that's like anti, progress.
Results.
That's anti work ethic. It's everything that you stress guys to do, and then they'll tell you, oh, that guy's not good. But how about if you tell them, like, well, your guy's not good? They'll get offended, and then you won't play. Mm-hmm. But I think it's like the leverage with the coaches and the parents and. And
so you're out though. You're out of the game.
And then the coach too can just pack up and leave.
So you're gonna have a child in high school. You're gonna have a child in middle school or no?
Yep, sixth grade.
And then elementary.
Yep, fifth grade.
So you got a little bit everywhere.
Sixth,
so you're seeing everything probably right now.
Yeah. Yep.
With
and with
how tough is it to see other people coach your children?
Too. It's
like
not
tackle
so much
football, say for your son.
See, my son's not playing. So he played like he played, and he told me this fall. He was like, Dad, I'm just playing hoops, and he loves it, and man, he's good at it, and I didn't want him playing until he was actually like 7th, 8th grade, because I'm just not a fan of the kids having to go out there and take the hits, and they don't have the neck strength and that stuff, and most of the kids get concussed because they don't have the neck strength. Their heads are like bouncing off the
I think we had a conversation a long time ago. Could have been when I was helping you out, and you were like, maybe going to this youth camp.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait a second, this person can't get into a stance. He never played football, but he's going to teach a 10-year-old how to tackle.
And
it's hard to.
And
it's hard to find coaches, number one. So it's like, I don't want to sound negative towards it's like youth coaches, but it's hard to find people that are going to do that job. Yeah. It's tough, but. You're sending your kid out there in a sport that has collisions.
You can get killed. Like seriously, you can get killed. And I watched my son's practices, and a lot of these guys who coach, they're bullies. They're like, you got to go again. You got to hit. You have to get tough, dude. Getting tough. They're like when you get hit. Okay, if I were to get hit right now, that hurts.
Oh yeah,
it hurts, and I'm tough. But I built myself where I could take it. Like it takes time. Like, and there's more. There's some kids that are more prone to being, physical and tougher and that stuff. But you can gradually increase that by just exposure, but by positive stuff, right? And then like teaching the kids so that they learn things that are gonna like help them long term. But I saw a coach holding a bag, and like fortunately my son's good, and to most, like they're surprised, like, man, he's not playing. I mean, he could go out there and play anything. Like you've seen, I'm sure, clips of him. He returns kicks, he takes them house, picks sixes, picks up, scoop and scores, right? And then he's not a guy that doesn't play, right? And he was just like, Dad, like he was like, I love playing basketball, and I can play the entire time. I can have an impact in the game, the entire game. And he got to a point, I think, and then I kind of look at it because I'm kind of with the mindset, well, you got to continue to play, you got to break through. I mean, you're like he played cornerback and stuff, and then he played tailback, and then they actually had him playing some Q too, and he did whatever he had to do to help the team win. And I'm not the guy telling the coach, like, you got to play him here. Like, my son was the only kid, I think, who doesn't want to play Q. And I was like, Jay, you can get the ball every play.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you can run, you can throw. But he said, he was like, Dad, like, I'm standing out there and I'm bored. He's like, if I play cornerback, they really don't pass the ball that much, and the play's not to the one side. And the coaches, they purposely put their kids at backer. And I watch games where guys are carrying the ball, and you're like, why? They fumble 4 or 5 times, and the dad's a coach. And I'm like, look, dude, like, I get it. I get a parent, like a dad that wants to spend his time helping kids, helps his son. No, do it. Good, man. I help mine too. But being a coach, though, I want to win, and I want everyone to do well, because part of it, I'm a selfish guy. Like, I want to have the best team, so I'm going to play the best guys. But I think kids need to learn that they need to earn it too. And then my son was like, Dad, I just don't see the need to go like practice and get hit. And it's like, why, right? And like, Jay, you're exactly right. Like, you don't need to. And he got hit once during practice when I was at Bama, and I guess like the one father called me, and like the kid cheap shot at him during a drill. It was like he was going across the field. He was just like a trail guy, and it was a drill that he should not have gotten hit. And the kid blindsided, ear holed him, and like he could have got really hurt. And I would have been really pissed off if he would have got concussed, because he doesn't need to. Like there's nothing he's doing right now. And like, he's a physically bigger kid. He's faster. He's a good athlete. He can run, jump, and catch. So that helps him now. But him being a better athlete by playing hoops and by doing that stuff, I think is much more important than going out there and like, being a star. And then I see on Instagram, there's players on his team. They train at some gyms, right? Because at that age, you can basically go wherever you want. So you're not locked into the other school. And there's kids that are 11 and 12 doing band-resisted squats, conjugate West Side style training.
Yeah.
And they've never been taught. And like the dad's like, what's your son doing during the off season? And then they show like their kids eating specialized diets, like, what's your son eating? And it's like, look,
That's
dude,
stupid.
get over it. And like, seriously, it is stupid, and it's hard to watch.
But yeah, I don't
from
even
being in the field. But now here, watch this. Like, the research shows that when kids are doing that stuff, like doing like CNS dominated exercise, it hurts them long term. And it's almost like giving your kid the keys to a Porsche before they had a bike, before they ever rode a bike. It's stupid. It's not sound. It's not smart. And if you can't do basic stuff, like I watch your stuff, you're doing basic things with kids. Right? Basic stuff.
Boring.
Basic stuff, like basic things. But people sometimes will look at that and they will ask me, like, well, my son's advanced. So it's like, dude, your kid's 13. He isn't advanced. No one's advanced. You're either highly skilled or poor skilled. Right? Highly skilled means that there's not much thought involved. Okay, but when you're learning, you should not be doing Z before A. Right, so if I watch your stuff, I see kids doing sled drives. Like, they're doing things that are going to give them general GPP. Like, they're getting in shape. You're teaching them things. There's some things that are fun. There's things that are tougher for them. Right, you're having them do stuff with med balls. You're doing stuff with balance. You're using some bells. You're using some barbell stuff. But there's a progression in place. And I think with all the internet fame and Instagram fame and all that stuff, people basically get anxious. The parents do, because they look at it and say, man, I see Tommy's son doing this, so I better do that.
Yeah.
And it basically whores out the gym, right? And like, you got to be a sound guy who's willing to take a punch in the gut. Either as far as being paid, or you got to be real tough and say, this is why my guys are the best. This is why my stuff's the best, and this is why you need to be here. And you better be confident, because if you fail by doing basic stuff, you're going to eat shit, right? So I think that's kind of like, like the day and age now with the sports. So that's why my son, man, I love to watch him play. He's explosive. He's tough. My girls are in the same sport, and I think basketball is awesome. And I was never a fan. Like, I didn't play. My wife played, and I'm like a football fanatic. I love it. That was my sport. But at the same time, I question. I started playing 7th grade. I'm in my college hall of fame and that stuff, and have done well. So I basically look at it and say, well, I did learn a lot. But I didn't. Depending on what you learn, it doesn't mean you've learned good things. Like, sports have taught me a lot of bad things too. Right. So, and I've dealt with a lot of bad dudes, guys that aren't good, and that ranges from youth to the pros. Right. So you basically got to make sure you're getting what you want out of it. And I was happy that my son, who knows that I trained, I'm a college coach, and I've trained pros and guys that are the best ever around here. And for him to have the courage to say, Dad, knowing that I played and I love the sport, to say, Dad, you know what, I think this year I'm not playing because I want to do more of this. Right, so it's not like he's quitting and then he'll he's like, Dad, I didn't quit because I plan to play again, but he's like, I'm choosing to do this instead.
Yeah.
Which I would rather have that, because think about this: how many kids are getting their asses kicked and having long-term effects from getting their bell rung, and they'll never play. They'll never play. And then why would you want your kid to quit in 9th, 10th grade after taking punishment and getting drilled, right, from the time they were 7? Until they were like 15 and not playing. Like what's the upside?
Yeah.
And to get back to this, I saw a coach, right, holding the bag, and he popped this kid, and the kid flipped back in his head, and I was watching from the side of the field. I was like, oh my God. And his head smashed around, bounced up, and he got up and he could hardly walk. He looked like he was at a DUI checkpoint. And then my son grabbed him and he checked on him, right? And then the coach was like, oh, you have to get back up here. You got to do it again. And the kid weighed 80 pounds. It's like, dude. And the coach jacked him up again.
Yeah.
And the kid he's small. He's a boy. Like a boy isn't supposed to be tough like a man, right? You need to express, what being a man is, and a man is being tough, but what type of tough? Being tough is being able to teach and have patience and help folks.
Yeah.
Right. So I think the way so that's my rant on that. But it was tough to watch. But the guys knew that I wasn't playing, and my son wasn't that guy. So fortunately, my son didn't take a lot of heavy hits. He wasn't getting backflipped. At times he would jack up guys, but. And then they would make him go up against the other good guys too, and that puts him more at risk.
Yeah.
Right, of getting hurt at times. So who cares? Right?
It's all good, man.
Yeah.
What do you think, dude? All good?
No.
Thanks for coming on, man.
All right, man. It was
all
real
right,
good. All right, we can talk all day,
Absolutely.
dude.
I know.